Колеги, продовжимо.
Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and I give the floor to journalist and political analyst who heads the political research center Atlas, Elkhan Shakhinoglu, and he presents the book From Maidan to Maidan. Good afternoon. My greetings to everybody. I'm sorry that my Ukrainian language is not so rich, but I will make amends later. And I'm from Baku. My name is Elkhan Shakhinoglu. I went to Ukraine 3 times last year. I was studying the situation. I went to Donetsk when everything has just started, when they were seizing those buildings. And when I came back to home, I wrote in several analytical articles, and they also invited me to television, but I decided to write a book as well. I had a lot of notes, and I had 2 major aims. My first aim was to acquaint Azeri readers with what happened in Ukraine last year, although Azerbaijan society does follow events in Ukraine, but I still think that they should get analysis of what was happening. My second target was Ukrainian society. I wrote the book in Russian, although my native tongue is Azeri. And the matter is that Ukrainian society and ordinary people and political circles should look at the situation through the eyes of a stranger, as I consider myself. As far as the book is concerned, I was in Donetsk, I was in Kiev, I talked to many people, I have done a lot of notes, and I had some messages that I want to share with you. For instance, Donbass, they talk a lot about it. When I was there last April, and when I saw how separatists were seizing all those buildings, I felt another factor talking to many people. There was a passive majority, and this majority did not support separatists or pro-Ukrainian forces. I thought then, and I still think, that you should have fought for the minds of the passive majority. This did not happen, however, and we saw what happened instead. Another example, when I was there in April on Easter, I saw how separatists worked very actively there, but regrettably, when I wanted to meet leaders of pro-Ukrainian parties, I saw that they abstained from this. They were at home and they were passive again. Instead of offering resistance, they were passive. As far as Crimea is concerned, for me the major issue was that it would not have happened if the Ukrainian army or Crimean Tatars could put up an armed resistance. What could happen in Crimea then? I wanted to study this issue research this issue in my book, but this is a very difficult issue because no one gave me a definite answer to the question, was there plan B? Although I do think that Russia has always had the plan to capture Crimea. I call it Plan X, and this could happen even in 2008 when there was a NATO summit, and they could do this, but they didn't because Ukraine was not admitted to NATO. When I was on Maidan last year, there was a dubious feeling. On the one hand, the feeling of joy because of the victory over the old regime. On the other hand, confusion because of the loss of Crimea and so on. And now President Putin talks a lot about double standards. For instance, why the West has recognized Kosovo and did not recognize Crimea. Kosovo is an independent state. They didn't join Albania. They knew that in such case, the US and Europe would not recognize them. And there was, Crimea was a totally different case. There was also a case in Georgia when Russia made war on Georgia. They occupied southern Ossetia and Abkhazia, and there are Russian troops, and not a single Western country applied sanctions to Russia. But you know, as Putin said, this was his personal plan. As far as double standards of Kremlin are concerned, we can quote what's happening in Yemen. Putin says that USA is applying double standards as if they support the legal authorities in Yemen, but they did not support legal authorities in Ukraine. But same double standards are applied by Russia. In Yemen, Russia is maneuvering between the positions of Iran and Saudi Arabia. This is a double standard. Another example, when Putin was given an interview saying that there was no state, if not for Nazarbayev, there wouldn't be a Kazakh state. This is another example how Russia treats her neighbors. Recently, we saw a film by a well-known pro-Kremlin journalist Solovyov, where Putin says in an interview that they had huge differences with the USA during the Chechen War, and in the end of 1990s, America actively helped Chechen gunmen with weapons and other stuff through Azerbaijan. And this is a message through us, to us, of course. If he is conducting such a policy in Russia towards Ukraine, then what can we say about Kazakhstan, which is a strategic ally of Russia, and Azerbaijan, which is a strategic partner of Russia? So he gives such messages to us as well. The Russian Minister for Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov, is maneuvering as well. He said that Turkey should open the border with Armenia, but there's a condition that Armenia should evacuate from regions that have no bearing on Mountain Karabakh. But Putin does not say this, and maybe Moscow is not interested in the just settlement of the Karabakh problem. But of course, Lavrov should understand that if they demand that Turkey opens border with Armenia, then Turks have the demand to liberate the regions that have no bearing on Mountain Karabakh. I think that soon some disagreement will appear between Azerbaijan and Russia about the pipeline. As you know, Azerbaijan gas is going to go to Europe, to Eastern Europe in particular, through Georgia. So soon we may see contradictions between Russia and Azerbaijan, although this is our independent decision. And Iran and even Turkmenistan can join later, because the president of Turkmenistan wants Turkmen gas to go through the bottom of Caspian Sea, which is hindered by Russia, or through Iran. So in the future, if Turkmen and Iranian gas is going through Azerbaijan pipeline, Azerbaijan can become an alternative to Russian gas. About Guam, Guam is a passive organization now. It is composed mostly of the alliance between Georgia and Azerbaijan. Yes, we have partnership. Azerbaijan invests a lot into Georgian economy, but regrettably in Guam, Moldova and Ukraine are as if outside the allied relations. I think that we should catch up in this respect. I am happy when I see some good things in Kiev, but I still think that we can develop our Ukrainian-Azerbaijan relations more. For instance, about gas. In Georgian ports, they are building new terminals, and Azerbaijan can sell liquid gas to Ukraine through them. After the pipeline Tavta-Tana is built, this is, the branched out Nabucco. Ukraine can sign a contract with East European countries and buy Azerbaijan gas from them. Baku awaits President Poroshenko, who will come in a couple of months, and this will give an impetus to relations between our countries, and the bilateral commission should start working again. At the moment it is frozen. This is our main line in Azerbaijan. Although officials in Azerbaijan are conducting a balanced policy, which I criticize. We do not join NATO, we do not sign an association agreement with the EU, but in spite of this, our western line is rather strong. For instance, the major enemy of Russia, former Georgian President Saakashvili, is now in Baku, and Azerbaijani leadership has a very warm relations with them. Even the prosecutor's office of Georgia demanded his extradition, but Azerbaijan does not extradite its friends. And Saakashvili said that if not for Azerbaijan help, Georgia would not withstand Russian pressure. Three former presidents of Ukraine are now taking part in an international conference in Baku. Mr. Yushchenko, Mr. Kuchma, and Mr. Kravchuk. There's no other example like this. Our relations have a huge potential and future. Ukraine should become more active in Southern Caucasus and have good relations with Azerbaijan and Georgia, as opposed to Armenia, who did not support the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Yesterday, three Azeris, I got to know about three Azeris who were killed in clashes with separatists. So I remember them and all the Ukrainians who died in the name of their motherland. I'm ready to answer your questions.
Tell me, please, could you give an advice? I know that Azerbaijan's history went through a huge pressure of Russia, and during the last 5 years, you can achieve that level. I spoke to many people from Azerbaijan, from Baku. The Baku as a capital reached the international level. So could you give a concrete advice? What should be done in Kiev for us to finally feel that we are the country and as a part of the world? I'm not the one who can give an advice to Ukraine or Kiev, but yes, Azerbaijan is developing because we sell energy resources, oil and gas, and not as much as we would like to, but in 3 years we have we have some also. In addition to that, we have economic difficulties. We have devaluation, so not everything is beautiful and fine. In our country, we are waiting for economic reforms of the government. I write about that as an independent journalist. And we have also an oligarchy system. We have a difference between you and our oligarchy systems. So we need economic reforms, and of course, we have some reserve $1 billion that can be used. But if one example, a year to keep on the same level of the national currency, we spent 2 million. Now we spend the same amount of money every month. If that goes like that, in the whole fund they will have no money. So we need reforms, powerful reforms, and in June we will have Olympic European Games, and Azerbaijan and Baku are preparing for that to receive guests. And after that, there will be some reforms. And I can say that we need to develop Ukrainian and Ukrainian Azerbaijan relations. We invested a lot of money in Georgia, but Ukraine is bigger. The potential is huge. We could invest into Ukraine. I remember such a fact that after Maidan, when you were looking for donors, there was information that Azerbaijan can invest into Ukrainian programs about $1 billion. And so these opportunities are there. I expect that after the visit of Poroshenko, the development will speed up. And it's important that we have this visit this year. Could you tell us about the book? What is it about? You told that this is a point of view of a stranger. Could you tell us briefly? I saw Maidan. What was there? And I saw the mood, revolutionary mood, and I wanted it to, as a strange person. I remember the first Maidan, and also I provide a comparative analysis in the book and political situation. I describe it in one more interesting example. When I came in October, there were parliamentary elections. I had a meeting with a lot of Ukrainian experts, and 90% they made mistakes in the prognosis. I asked who can win, which party will be the second, and so those prognoses have not come true. That was an interesting point in my book. I also had a meeting with Yushchenko. I took an interview from him with Mustafa Jamilev, and his view, how he sees the situation in Crimea, how that issue can be resolved. Can Crimean Tatars live in Ukraine one day? I studied all of that, and then I drew parallels between the situation in Azerbaijan and Ukraine. And one more point I wanted to mention and I wrote about that in the book. When we speak about the double standards, in the West, they also have double standards. Take leaders of separatists objectively, they were announced outside of the law. They've frozen their accounts so they cannot travel to the US, to Europe. But unfortunately, separatists from Nagorno-Karabakh, leaders of those separatists, they travel around Europe and the US, and they have 2 marathons in the US. So I can speak of these are also double standards. One separatist cannot be good and the other one bad. That Karabakh's separatism, they have everything, and the US Congress gives them money every year. Though they organized such awful things in Azerbaijan, these are also double standards. Russia has, and the West also have double standards. For whom did you write the book? What is the audience? Ukrainians, Europe, Azerbaijan? I told you, for Azerbaijan readers to read and analyze the situation when they read this book. The second is Ukrainian public as a stranger, view of a stranger, how I analyzed this, and I took the interview from Mr. Serdyuk, and I have his interview in the book. So there is an informative part of the book, and also there are some analysis. Plus an interview with Mr. Serdyuk, Mr. Yushchenko, and I give also analysis. Information policy should be there. I want readers to read that, and also the analysis means my view. Thank you very much. One more question. Well, one can buy that book. Those who want to buy it, where can they buy it? I brought only 8 copies to Kiev. I was afraid of problems on the border, but 1,000 copies in Azerbaijan. I have only 20, 30 left, and next time maybe I will bring 100, 150. But unfortunately, it's not in the books. I was not able to make them this book to be present in Ukrainian bookstores. Your book is called From Maidan to Maidan. What do you mean? You compare Orange Maidan 2004 and this revolution of dignity, or do you answer your question? Philosophically, I hear when I speak to experts, they don't say it openly that the Maidan is not over yet. This is also a philosophical attitude to the event. So, safeguard that you don't have one more Maidan. I wish you to develop normally. But nobody knows what can happen in the future. Though in Azerbaijan people believe that to solve such big issues in the revolutionary becomes difficult, and because after revolution there is a counter-revolution. So I thought my observations to Maidans would be that's maximum for Ukraine, but philosophically life goes on and anything can happen. We have too many questions to you. There's one more. Thank you that you mentioned me. My question is different. I was late. Don't you see prospects for Guam as a political and economic union? As Azerbaijan, do you consider there could be some crisis in Russia? Caucasus after Putin. How do you see that? Because after Ukraine, Putin will look at your side on Baltic countries. Do you have your own crisis in how to defend yourself from that policy? Thank you. You asked about Guam and what plans of Putin could be on this in the South Caucasus. We don't in Baku. We don't have optimistic views about Guam. It's mostly Georgia and Azerbaijan. Moldova is completely absent. Though when it was created, it was like anti-balance to Russian interests. And at the end of the 90s, that was the idea. In Washington, from presidents of Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan. Some of them are not with us anymore. But if the process will begin, so we will participate. We would like to be in Guam, and we would like to invest in that. We don't want it to be dependent on Russia and Russian pressure all the time. Though in Azerbaijan the government calls Russia a strategic partner, but I don't believe so. Strategic, we need to take it out. A partner. If that country supports Armenia, if they support Nagorno-Karabakh, Russia cannot be a strategic partner, cannot be even ally of Azerbaijan. And even in the government, they believe that we need to stand against the pressure of Russia, and it means that we need to have good relations with the US, though we don't sign associated agreement with the EU. We need to have very good relations with the EU. Just one fact. The EU signed with Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine association agreement, not with Azerbaijan. but they consider us a potential partner in these gas projects. They understand that. They can understand that it will be an alternative to Russian gas. And the conflict of interest of Russia and Azerbaijan will happen. So the policy of Russia, they sent us messages to Azerbaijan, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lavrov, he gives such message to Azerbaijan. One more fact, they captured 2 Azerbaijanis from Karabakh. They went to the village, crossed pre-front line, and separatists arrested them. They gave them 10-15 years in prison. They didn't do anything illegal. One of them is Azerbaijan, but he has a Russian passport. The government of Azerbaijan, through its own channels, tells Moscow, protect you. He says that he has a passport. No. Journalists from Azerbaijan ask him Lavrov ask, why don't you pull out your citizen from the prison? He doesn't give an answer. So that's the attitude of Russia towards Azerbaijan. And again, Russia is our neighbor. We would like to have normal relations, but we have our national interest. We cannot, because of whims of the president of Russia and Kremlin, we cannot betray our interests.
Thank you very much for coming to us. Wish you success in the future.